This is an order of Fra Diavio. That my mom got for me while at the Dakota. Historically, I usually go with my mom. But decided against it tonight. Yeah, primarily because I felt I would rather work on the triangle ball polystyrene drawing project that I currently have at the little section I've set up for myself between the kitchen area and the living room area. Then go out singing karaoke. Singing karaoke tends to be something I do with my mom. It's an enjoyable activity. Though I don't enjoy it anywhere near as much as working on my polystyrene drawings. I have a glass of 1% milk because we currently don't have any whole milk at home. I worked on the triangle ball during the morning, both during the morning period the mid-morning period, I would say, and during the evening, early night period. I stopped working on the triangle ball the first time as around roughly from 1 p.m. to about 3:15 p.m. We left for a nearby, I believe it's referred to as a tree nursery. But we went there in order to pick out a tree for Christmas. To be freshly cut for us. Generally, the trees are, I think, kind of connected to the ground. Through some kind of wooden planks. Planks that are held in place using a sort of square pattern. You pick the tree you want. In this case, I think a moderately tall Fraser. It was tied to the top of Mom's car. Using two thin rope-like straps. Not exactly like rope, but closer to rope than anything else, to my recollection. And they were default blue colored. Default blue, I think also known as medium blue. Well, we got the tree home after a short drive. And I carried it single-handedly the short distance from the top of Mom's car at that place. Besides buying the tree, she also bought a new pair of work gloves that fit my hands perfectly. The work gloves were of their large size variety. And their large size fit my hands perfectly. That tree nursery place, some of the trees were inside a sort of greenhouse-like structure, only instead of the planes being made out of glass, I think they were made out of plastic. And it didn't have the same heating effect, obviously. Some of the trees were inside that structure, while others were outside it. We ended up picking a tree that was outside. I carried it single-handedly from the top of Mom's car to putting it into our old tree stand in our living room. This being after helping my mom move the sections of our living room couch to make room for the tree. I primarily push the sections using my legs. Kind of the sort of walking method of pushing in that regard. Mom primarily held the tree while I tightened the screws of the tree stand so they would hold the tree in place. Then my mom cut the long thread, same as what was used to tie the tree to the top of our car. Then uncoiled this sort of thread that the workers back at the tree nursery used to kind of hold the branches up. To make it easier for us to transport the tree. which it did. Though there was one point where I briefly held the tree and Mom worked with the screws. One screw seemed to kind of get a bit stuck since the nut on the screw was too close to the part of the screw that the bolt that's meant to hold the tree in place. I got a bit of tree sap on this palm. Hopefully it's off by now, though. Afterwards, around 3:30, I had the chef salad we got from our last Wegmans shopping trip. And then around 4:45 p.m., I had what was left of a prepared food order of container of shrimp and grits. After Mom cooked it, had some of it, and then said I could have the rest. As she was going to have something at the Dakota, the glass of milk I had with the leftover chef salad was a combination of the last of the gallon of whole milk and some of a quart of %1 milk, whose best by date it was on the 8th of December, but is still perfectly fine. It was still perfectly fine. That quart of milk, I believe, was used for something on the December 1st party. And that shrimp and grits was also part of our last grocery shopping trip at Wegmans. Mom got that for herself. The glass of milk I just had was from the relatively new gallon of 1% milk that Mom got, whose best by date is on the 24th of December. I recall waking up today around 3:30 in the morning on this sort of leather, or at least leather-like black love seat that makes up part of the little area I've set up between the kitchen and the living room. And then, not too long after that point, I had the other extra large Hershey's chocolate bar. Before I recall going up to my room and then some hours later going back down to that little area I set up between the kitchen and the living room to first work on the triangle ball today. During the times I worked on the triangle ball, I made sure to do my best with all of the little triangles I drew. Doing what I've typically done for these little triangles in the past. Make dots where the corners would go, then dots between the lines made by the first dots, and then connecting the dots one side at a time to the best of my ability. And essentially trying to make the triangles as uniform as possible, the sides as uniform as possible, while also keeping each line uniform in its thickness. But at some points and keeping the lines as straight as possible, but at times, even though I hadn't quite met that point, I decided to leave it as it was for some triangles. After feeling I had done my best to achieve all of those objectives for those triangles,